everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mondays Down South. We got the usual trio, and we have a guest for at least the first portion of this episode. An audio guest only, but a guest nonetheless. My buddy John from Raleigh, who's been on, I think, for the draft episode over the spring. We've got him on to talk a little Panthers. He's a Panthers fan. Obviously, some breaking news on that front with Cam Newton back in the league. And has one game back under his belt. But before we jump into the Panthers stuff, I guess Zach, anything off the top before we let John?
John, can you give us a really strong "I'm back" like with an X for us? We would really appreciate a Cam Newton impersonation to start off the podcast, because that was epic.
Yes, here I'll give it my best. I'm back.
Yes,
oh, that was pretty good.
That was
nice
good
effort.
I put you on the spot and you delivered, man. Respect.
That was good.
Respect. Cam would be proud.
I hope Cam would be proud.
No, he definitely would be. I don't have anything in particular to update. I know we were just talking offline about how Evan and I had a nice, fun little weekend in New York City. So back-to-back weeks of seeing Bakulik and Evan in different cities, and now we got a great guest that we had on for a previous episode back. So I'm just excited to be back with the boys talking football and talking a little Mondays Down South. So that's all I got. I'll kick it over to Zach or John. If you guys have anything you want to mention before we get into things.
Yeah, John, are you going to the Panthers-Washington game? Because I've got second row seats for that game, so I'm really excited to potentially see Cam start. I mean, PJ Walker is good enough he's solidified himself as he's a pretty good backup in the league. He's had his moments. Was a catalyst for the Panthers driving the football again. Obviously, CMC is a big part of that too. But they beat the Cardinals, and he didn't necessarily do anything to be proven, to be stripped of that title. So it would be interesting seeing Cam and PJ kind of battle it out for number one. I guess Cam's still trying to learn the playbook. Regardless, going to the game. John, are you going to the Panthers game at all, or are you staying back watching on TV?
I'm staying back watching on TV. I'm actually a little upset because I wanted to go to that game actually before Cam made his return. I was already looking at tickets then, did not pull the trigger, and now when I look at tickets, it's a scary sight.
I can only imagine what price points look like. A question: Can we kick this off with a Panthers question for you guys? Because we got John on, and I want to get his perspective. So if you're up,
that's what he's here for.
Okay, great. I got a question for you guys. Has there ever been, and this is something I was thinking to myself today as I was looking at some statistics and just kind of game flow and stuff. Has there ever been a player outside of the quarterback position that when they're on the field are as valuable to their offense as Christian McCaffrey is as a running back, so to speak, for the Panthers? Like I legitimately started asking myself that. I'm talking his ability to catch. He was 10 for 10 on receptions this week with, I think, close to 70 yards receiving and then almost 100 yards rushing on offense. And it just seemed like every single play up until the red zone was going through him, and they knew it was going through him, and nobody could do anything about it. And this has been a norm since he's been healthy for the last 2 years, ever since he had that absurd, what should have been an MVP year, in my opinion. This has been a norm when he's been healthy. I'm legitimately starting to question if there's ever been a player that's been able to do as much as he is capable of outside of the quarterback position on an offense in the history of the NFL. Like I can't think of anybody, but I'm curious to see if you guys had anyone that comes to mind that, or if you agree with me.
I can't think of anyone that's had that kind of insane usage, both as a runner and a receiver, because it's like he still gets like the 20 carries a game that like a normal running back these games does. So no one really comes to mind, to be honest.
I would say there are some other running backs throughout NFL history that have probably established the run a little bit better. Not that he's bad at that at all, but you can think of some of the greats. But I can't think of any running backs who have the ability to come out of the backfield and catch, the passes that he's catching and also receive the volume that he's receiving, both running it and catching the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's very unique in that aspect for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say Alvin's probably a good comparison. And you could argue Alvin's sometimes more explosive. I think CMC is more of a volume guy. Like you had just mentioned that statistics side, 10 receptions. And, I think even to start the season, when I went to the Jets game, he had 10 receptions, like easy work. And that's certainly something not to shy away from. And Alvin, despite the fact that he consistently gets 80 receptions per season, it's not 10 per game. But I think Alvin is equally as explosive, and he's also a playmaker in his own. They're different styled running backs, but Alvin's, he's a north and south guy, but he's got some latitude to him as well. And then obviously Derrick Henry as well when he's healthy. He's not getting the 10 receptions a game, but he's getting 30 carries a game and he's doing something with it. So I would probably say those two. And then if you look at other positions, I would obviously argue Devontae is so crucial to that offense. Without Devontae, there's clearly a huge problem. So those are kind of my options, but Sai, kicking it over to you.
So I'll say this. I think Derrick Henry, in terms of impact to his offense and what he's able to bring, when he's running the football the way that he's able to, even though he doesn't have the receiving ability, I compare it to this. There's two guys I think of. Derrick Henry right now with the way that he rushes, and then like that season Adrian Peterson post ACL, where Minnesota, he literally, all jokes aside, carried the Minnesota Vikings to the playoffs because they would run the ball 30 times a game. The ball was going to Adrian Peterson. They weren't even passing it to him. They were running the ball with him, and he would find a way to break plays off, and he almost broke the rushing record that year. And that's one season I think of because he had over 2,000 yards rushing on the ground and carried his team to the playoffs. And then I think of like one of the Calvin Johnson seasons where he had over 2,000 yards receiving. Granted, the Lions weren't great, but he made him somewhat relevant on a team that just had no business being relevant. So that's what I think of. But I can't say that Kamara is as impactful as McCaffrey. And that's no disrespect to Kamara because Kamara is incredible. And he's definitely like one of the most versatile running backs ever. But I actually disagree. I think McCaffrey's more explosive because he's definitely the quicker back. Like Kamara's big thing is he's never been a big speed guy, but he's very capable of like finding the holes and breaking out a little bit. McCaffrey is like an all-world athlete, which is why he got drafted, as high as he did. Because if you think about it peripherally, he's not like a big, tall, like, kind of guy. And he's not as like bulky as some of these like smaller, like run you over kind of running backs are from like the past, like, your Ingrams of the world. He just has this unique skill set of just being so athletic that he's capable of doing anything. And you could argue that if you made him a slot receiver, he could be a top 10 receiver in the league. And he's already definitely as a rusher, a top 5, top 10 rusher in the league. And I don't think I've ever seen that. Like Kamara's an incredible receiver, but it's just what McCaffrey does. I've never seen it before. Like there's people that have been maybe as impactful at a single thing, but never at both. And I mean, and if you look at numbers, like on average, like Kamara's numbers versus McCaffrey's, Kamara is in the conversation of being that next guy. But if you look at like on average, Kamara's or McCaffrey's numbers when he plays games, he's on a whole different level, Zach. I mean, his arguable MVP season, he had over 1,000 yards receiving and over 1,000 yards rushing with close to 100 receptions. I think he actually did have 100 receptions, and he had, I think, like close to 20 touchdowns. Like it was on another level, and that's what he consistently does when he's healthy. So I don't know. We're spending a lot of time on it, but I think it's worth noting because he deserves that kind of shout out, in my opinion. I think he deserves that time of a segment because I look at him play and I'm just like, it's inexplicable to me. I don't even understand how it's possible that somebody can be that impactful as one guy who's not a quarterback, but it's truly something beautiful. And if there was ever a running back who deserved the contract, maybe health is the big question. John, I think your Panthers paid the right guy. I just hope he can stay healthy because it seems like that's the thing that's getting him more than anything.
There's got to be a shout out to Arian Foster too, 2012, coming out of the woodworks. He had like 1,600 yards, and he came out like no one. He wasn't even the starter that year. Ben Tate, a rookie out of Auburn, was. But we won't spend too much time on that. I'm just almost trying to give myself like a pat on the back for picking him that year in fantasy and coasting to the championship. Obviously not in our friends league and a family league. But John, I wanted to turn this question over to you. So the Panthers right now are sitting in wild card potential despite the craziness of this entire season with Sam Darnold starting off really hot. People agreeing kind of collectively across the board that was a great risk decision in terms of giving some draft picks to New York. Obviously, as this is unfolded, he's kind of fallen from grace. Do you expect Cam to start predominantly for the remainder of the season? And do you think they actually make the playoffs? I think they're currently like the 7th seed right now.
It depends on how he plays. Obviously, if I were to make the prediction myself, I think Cam plays well, and I think he steals the job, and I think he plays out for the rest of the season. Whether he plays well enough to actually make it to the playoffs, I'm not so sure. It's hard to say right now. Just because, one game back, he only played for a handful of plays, not really testing his accuracy again. But man, he looks like just his attitude and his leadership. He looks like the old Cam, and that's an exciting thing, especially as a Panthers fan, knowing when Cam is as excited and when he gets riled up for football games. Man, it's just one of the most fun things to watch in football, to be honest.
Agreed.
So we'll have to see how it goes, but I am more excited for the second half of the season, without a doubt, than I was after the first couple games. Then Sam Darnold racks up a couple losses. My attitude shifted quite a bit, and I thought, this is just going to be that was a bad purchase, and it wasn't going to end well for the Panthers this year. But now I have a new hope, being a Panthers fan, and we'll just have to see what happens. McCaffrey needs to stay healthy. That's the key to this whole thing. It's a completely different team without McCaffrey. I think that was pretty obvious as well, during the games which he was absent. And so we'll see how it plays out, but I have a lot more hope to make it to the playoffs than I did before they signed Cam.
I also think your defense has a ton of potential, John. I mean, you guys have playmakers all over the board. I know Brian Burns is hurt. I hope he gets healthy soon. I hate to see him out, but even without Burns, you guys have a lot of playmakers on defense, and I think you guys are arguably better than you are. One thing I will say, though, is it's a whole different atmosphere in Carolina with Cam Newton. I mean, regardless of whether you win or lose, it's just fun to watch him back there, like the same way it was when he was playing there before he ever left the Panthers. It's just the energy that he brings. I mean, I can't help but think about, like, the "I'm back" reminded me of when, like, that iconic play where the defender, I can't remember if it was Clay Matthews or somebody like that was called his play out or whatever, and we remember when Cam goes, "Oh, my play? That's cute. Watch this," and then he pushes it in for a touchdown. Like, that is still one of the most epic moments I've ever seen on an NFL field. So
it's a wheel route.
Like
it's
that,
a wheel route.
Exactly. And he's back for literally 3 days, and the whole team is rallying around him, like, as that leader, the guy that took the Panthers to a Super Bowl. It kind of gives me chills. Like, it's epic. It's like it makes the Panthers such a fun team to root for, in my opinion. Like, I want to root for them. That's how I feel.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's just a natural born leader. I mean, there was a shot of him over on the sideline before the game started. The defense was going out on the field, and Cam huddled the whole defense together, all the starters who were about to go out on the field, and just took a knee and was, like, just giving them a speech to get them all, like, ready to go. I mean, it's just, and he's been there for 3 days. I mean, he's such a natural born leader, and he has this contagious energy to him wherever he goes. And everyone in Carolina embraces him so much. So I'm so excited to see what he's going to do. And that being said, I do remember the bad times as well. And that's kind of the other half of Cam is he wears his emotion loudly, whether it's happy or sad. And usually when he gets down, the team starts playing a lot worse. So we'll have to see how he handles his emotions moving forward.
Yeah, I'll just echo a lot of what was said to Sai's point. Like, it does kind of feel like a fairy tale right now. It's just his, like, relationship with that city and that city's appreciation for him is just, like, so strong. It's awesome to see him come back together. And to John's point, that clip of him, like, already being an immediate leader, it's like, not like, yeah, he was on that team, but you also think about how much turnover that team has had since he was there. Like, it's a whole new coaching staff. And I would imagine a lot of the players are completely different as well. So to see him come in and be such a leader right away is it's awesome to see. And, we'll see how it plays out. I think he's going to play well. I thought he looked good in the preseason in New England too. It was just a bad, like, culture fit and, like, the type of offense they wanted to run. And clearly Mac looks really good too. So, but I thought he played well and well enough to be a starter. And, again, the whole leadership element, I think, will raise the rest of the team up. Ultimately, I agree. It comes down to Christian McCaffrey being healthy, but I would say if, with Cam in there, if C-Mac stays healthy, they would have to feel pretty good about their chances of sneaking in, given that the NFC wild card is a complete jumble around the 500 mark right now. Zach?
Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Mac Jones, Ev, and speaking of happy hunting, which was a quote from Hassan Reddick in a post-game conference, not too happy with Mac Jones's antics, contributing to the injury of Brian Burns. But talk about happy hunting. I mean, did you guys see the Browns-Patriots game and how much of a bloodbath that was? I know specifically for us three, Evan and Sai, our pick didn't necessarily come into fruition, thinking that the Browns were going to kind of, off that great game against the Bengals from the prior week, go into New England and kind of take them up by storm. Took me by surprise, but did you guys catch that game at all? And I mean, is Mac Jones now solidified himself as the rookie of the year, or is that still Jamar Chase at this point?
I want to get into it, but I want to make sure, John, do you have anything else that you wanted to say? I know if I recall Evan saying correctly, you were staying with us for the Panthers, and you had to bolt after that. So just wanted to give you that opportunity, and then Zach will address your comments immediately after, because I got a lot to say about that.
Yes, I do need to hop off here in a second. The last thing I'll say about the Panthers is my prediction is
I was going to ask
9-8. No, I'll do it. 10-7. 10-7.
Wow, love it.
That's my prediction. That's what I'm hoping for. They get into the playoffs in a wild card, and then
they win a game.
I hope for the best after that. And
all right,
Cam is the starter the rest of the way for sure.
Yeah, I think he's going to start this week, and I think the plan is for him to start right away. But
hey, with that prediction, you have me smiling the same way Christian McCaffrey was when Cam Newton walked back on that field. That's how I feel right about now. John, it's been a pleasure, brother.
Thank you, John.
See you, John.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Take care, man.
All right, Sai, carry us away on Browns Pats.
This is precisely why, like we were talking about betting last week, I was like, when it comes to the Patriots, I do not feel confident betting anything straight up that anybody's going to cover a spread against them, because it's Bill Belichick, man. Like it feels like every single team they played this year, like the good or bad, they've always kept the games close or have beaten teams that they weren't expected to beat. And did I expect them to beat the Browns 45-7? No, by no means did I expect that. But am I surprised the Patriots, beat up on a team that was supposed to be really good? No, because I'm never gonna be surprised when Bill Belichick is out coaching somebody else and does it masterfully. And this was a defensive clinic on the Patriots' part. Just completely took everything away the Browns had to offer, with the exception of Dearness Johnson, who still balled out and had like great statistics, but that's the only guy that did anything on the offense. Honestly, that's a bad look on Baker Mayfield. He didn't do anything especially after all the Odell stuff. Like this just doesn't, like, I feel like last week they came out and made a statement where like, we don't need Odell. And then this week it was like, I'm not saying Odell would have made a difference, but it's just kind of like, this is not when you want to have a game like this, because it just makes it look even worse that you couldn't get anything for Odell. You released them and then you get dismantled like this. It's just not a good look on their part. But shout out to the Patriots, man. Like I'm telling you that this team has a future. Mac Jones looks good. They don't. I said this last week. They don't have big names on that team, offensively or defensively, but they find a way to win as a team, and that's why I got so much respect for Bill Belichick. He's not my favorite person, but I will always give him credit where credit is due. He's taken a rookie and a bunch of guys that aren't big name players and building a solid foundation of a winning team around them. And I respect that so much. That's what I have to say about that. E, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the blowout nature of that game was a shocker. And it's like, we're at that point in the NFL season where you think you've started to figure teams out, and then wait a second. So like the Browns coming off last week, you're like, oh, okay, the Browns are back. The Browns are going to be, an AFC contender. And then it's like, oh, no, they're going to lay an egg here. But I do think the story is more about the Patriots, right? Like, I mean, they've been playing well the entire, I guess, second half of the first half of the season, if you will, like the last 4 or 5 games or so. And especially with some of the inconsistent with the other teams, like they're starting to look like, I mean, are they a top 5 team in the AFC at this point? Like they honestly look that good. And, like Sai said, a lot of the names on offense aren't household names, but like, you got some underrated guys there in Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, the tight ends are good. Damian Harris was out that game too. And Ramondre Stevenson, laid the boom on Cleveland several times. So I think the Patriots are definitely good. The Browns probably aren't, but yeah, it's hard to say. I wouldn't be surprised if the script flips next week, depending on who they're playing. But yeah, shocked to see a blowout. But, I mean, the Patriots, they just keep coming. And Mac Jones, he was carving them up. He looked really, really impressive. So
best rookie quarterback by a country mile at this point.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize either that it was 45 unanswered points too. Cleveland came out and they had this unbelievable first drive without Odell. It really made a statement, and then they just kind of disappeared. They fell off the face of the earth. And quite frequently, I would say that is more detrimental to Myles Garrett's potential defensive player of the year running. I mean, when you lose 45-7 and your defense gives up 45 unanswered points, I just don't necessarily know how positive that can impact. I mean, I know at a player level, but jumping back into the rookie of the year conversation, I still think Jamar Chase has done enough at this point in time, despite his recent slippage, to remain at that number one spot. But I definitely think Mac Jones is accelerating pretty quickly. And if he can lead that team to the playoffs, his rookie season, much like a Matt Ryan did, or much like an Andrew Luck did. Andrew Luck's probably a better example because Andrew Luck didn't really have the receivers that Matt Ryan did. And Mac Jones doesn't necessarily have them either. So I would almost compare it more to that. But if Mac can lead this team back to the playoffs, it just goes to show you what him and Bill Belichick can do. And I think their talent's endless there.
This is definitely my bias coming in, but Luck had far less than the Mac Jones in the sense of that offensive line and the fact he didn't have a 100-yard rusher for his first 2 full seasons of the NFL. Cool. He didn't have a single running back run for over 100 yards his first 2 seasons in the NFL. So Luck, there's a reason Luck isn't playing NFL football anymore. He was broken from carrying that team for 5 years with no competent coaching. That's where Bill Belichick gets a lot of credit, in my opinion. So I don't want to take anything away from Mac Jones in that respect, but he's setting Mac Jones up for success even without maybe these big playmakers. Flip side of that, though, is Jones is taking advantage of that. And I completely agree with you, Zach, that if the Patriots make the playoffs or they're right on the cusp of it and Mac Jones continues to play the way that he does, I think he's got to get it because it's so much harder to be in his shoes and lead a winning team as a rookie than, in my opinion, for Chase. And Chase is having an incredible season. I don't want to take anything away from him, but especially he's opened the window by not having like an amazing couple of weeks. I think with the way Mac has continued to develop over the course of his rookie year, quarterbacks always are going to get the nod if they can lead a winning team. So I agree with you on that. And Ev, I don't know if you have any comments, but you said something being back. So I got
agreed. If the Patriots make the playoffs, and specifically if they make it and the Bengals don't, I think there's no chance that Chase can win it over him. In part just because the quarterbacks always get the awards, unless it's like a complete landslide the other way. It's like the quarterbacks get the awards. It's understandable. So, and in this case, I'm not saying it would be deserved, but it definitely would. But that's also just they tend to go with the quarterback.
And I will say, Ab made a statement earlier that kind of set me up for something perfect. He said, we thought the Browns were back. I don't know about the Browns being back, but the $500 million man with the rocket arm is back. Over 400 yards passing and 5 touchdowns this weekend. I think he's done it twice already in his career, and it's his 3rd or 4th season. I don't remember the statistic. It might be the only guy that has done it that quickly or something like that, but Patrick Mahomes, I know the Chiefs have been having close games. They have been winning, but they haven't been good wins by any means. But this week, I think, was a statement. I always felt like they were going to bounce back in the second half. I've stuck true through that every week. You guys know I still keep picking them even when they've struggled and had their losses. I think this week was an explosion that they've been waiting to have, and I genuinely believe that this will jumpstart them in going in the second half of the season because that was a showing and then some. I mean, they put on a clinic. It wasn't even close. The Raiders are a good team. I understand they have a lot of injuries, but they're still a good team and a team that's been competitive in the conference. And I'm not saying that that they shouldn't have won that game. Of course, I think the Chiefs should have won that game, but the way in which they won it, I think, is making a statement. I genuinely believe the Chiefs are coming back to try to be to make a name for themselves against the AFC and try to represent the AFC again. So that's how I feel. I'm sure you guys are probably more skeptical than I am because it's only been a week of them dominating, but it's kind of felt like this has been waiting to happen for me personally.
They certainly look back. Zach. I need to calculate some thoughts here, and I know you were about to go ahead. So
no, you go for it, man. I don't have too much to say on the Chiefs.
No, that was vintage Chiefs. Kelsey got his, Tyreek got his, Darrell Williams. Like, it just was vintage Chiefs, and the defense had been playing better the weeks before that as well. And again, they got Melvin Ingram. So if the defense actually turns out to be competent, then they can be back to that Super Bowl form. I will say at this point, especially with how the rest of the division looks, they should coast to winning unless the Chargers pick it back up to where they started the year. But I think they'll coast to win the division. I'm gonna make them prove it to me this week, though, because they got Dallas at home. Dallas, awesome team. Despite how good Dallas is, that is a game at home you should win if you're the vintage Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And that's not to disrespect Dallas at all. Dallas is fantastic. So that's why if they look that good again this week, then I'll agree that the Chiefs are back. And I do think the Raiders, this is going to kind of start their very fast descent back towards the bottom of where we expected them preseason, especially just with all the drama. Like, they were playing well after it for a while, but I think it's just got to be so tough when the injuries and all the drama mount up. And again, that's not to take anything away from the Chiefs because they looked amazing and in true form. And it does look like they're back. I think they probably are back, but let's prove it this week in a real big spot in the 4:25 primetime game at home against Dallas.
We're going from one red and yellow team to another. Ev, we'll give you the floor because you deserve it, man. The Washington football team came out of nowhere. They played their hearts out. And I was watching the game with my roommate, and we were like, he's a huge Washington football fan too, as you guys know. And we looked at each other and we are like, this is exactly the way we kind of expected Washington to come out and dictate the game. And like, what I mean by that is like dictate clock possession, long methodical drives, not forcing the ball into certain situations they weren't feeling comfortable with. And the longer you keep Tom Brady and his offense off the field, the more frustrating that they get because they're normally, accustomed to coming out with a 2-touchdown lead pretty quickly. I mean, they were like 7-2 before this game. So huge win for Washington. Wanted to get your initial thoughts on like what you observed during the game. I think, Heineke played himself a fantastic game, just brings so much energy. The kid has so much passion. Like, how do you not root for him from like a neutral fan standpoint? And, Gibson just dominating the clock possession, first down after first down. He's like a bowling ball type of player with like an aspect of finesse. McKissick is like an improved Chris Thompson. I mean, it was just really, really impressive watching you guys, capped off with the cherry on top with McLaurin taking that big hit, standing up and flexing on the sideline. I mean, you could argue that McLaurin has kind of surpassed the DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley level, moving forward. He's a phenomenal player, finally getting credit. So yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, just quickly on McLaurin, he's super underrated because especially this year with Curtis Samuel having not played a lick, like our number 2 receiver is like Adam Humphries. So it's like, I don't care who the corner is on the other team. The best corner is always shattering Terry. So I think he's definitely top 10, super underrated. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to see the formula work, but them to actually stick to the formula. And it's funny, going into the season after that wild card game last year, I had this game circled. I was like, I don't care. Well, I'm going to say I don't care what happens because I didn't pick them, but I was like, they're going to win that game. Back at home after the wild card, like, I don't care. I'll say I don't care how well the Bucs are playing. They're going to win that game. And then obviously, like, I wasn't expecting us to play so horrible this year. So, there was no way I was going to be able to pick them there. But, it's like Taylor Heineke against the Bucs is like greatest of all time quarterback. Taylor Heineke against everyone else is like a mid-level backup. It just, it is what it is. It's good to see him come out of the bye and not just kind of completely roll over. Obviously, it's still early in the season, but some teams tend to do that, especially when even after this win, it's going to be tough to make the playoffs with how Dallas is playing because you kind of got to go through the division. But it's good to see the formula work. And I think the biggest takeaway is we can get our hands off the panic button on Antonio Gibson. Is that he finally looks like that lead back that we thought he was last year, and then early on this year, obviously he's been dealing with the shin stuff. So it seems like he's healthier. Finally, looks like a lead back again. And yeah, I mean, huge win, but equally huge loss. Chase Young out for the year with a torn ACL. So it's a nice moral win, and yeah, with all the division games left, maybe they could make a run as the schedule lightens up considerably from the first half. But Chase Young is out. Montez Sweat is out. The defense has finally started to play better, and all the receivers are out. It's just going to be tough. So it's a nice moral win. The Bucs need to figure out their run defense. I don't know how. I mean, granted, the strength of our team is our run blocking offensive line and run game if we stick to it. But the Bucs didn't play well at all. But it's nice. It's nice to win one, we'll say, and we'll see where it goes from here. But it's nice to win one, especially over Tom.
Yeah, the first thing I wanted to say is I just want to talk about Chase Young. Like I just hope he gets better real soon and comes back. One of the better young rookie pass rushers I'd ever seen coming out of last year. And I think his future is so bright. So wishing him the best and really hoping he gets back on the field soon and hoping for the best for him. The other thing I wanted to say, though, was football team deserves a ton of credit, though. I mean, everything I've said is fine in the sense of, the Bucs not playing well and stuff, but for them to come out and make that kind of statement against a team that nobody expected them to beat, even their own fans, that's saying something. And I think they kind of had that, like I've said, ever since the last wild card, they probably had that game circled as the one that they really wanted to prove because they gave them a run for it and then some. And you could argue more than anyone else in the playoffs did last year. You could make that argument. So shout out to them. They deserve that. I still think the future is bright if they can sort that quarterback situation out in the future. Big win for Heineke, but this might be the biggest one of his career. No disrespect to him, but there's a good chance next year he's not going to get these opportunities again. So I'm happy for him that he's going to have this under his resume. But this kind of sets me up for what I wanted to bring up on this pod, and that is the state of the NFC holistically. No team at this point, there's multiple teams that deserve to, be Super Bowl contenders, but there's the NFC is just kind of in my opinion, the AFC is in terms of depth is just better. That's what I'm starting to think with what we're seeing recently. I mean, Zach kicked it over to this segment by saying, let's talk about another team of the red and yellow, but we can talk about a matchup of the red and yellow with the Rams and the 49ers this week as your perfect example. 49ers just mauled them. I don't have any sort of explanation for how that happened to the Rams. If it was a close game and the 49ers won, maybe I could have understood it a little bit more because the 49ers are a talented team. I still think their coaching is better than it has been. I think they're better than the record has shown in the sense of their talent. So I'm not surprised to say, maybe the 49ers could have won this game. But the way they just beat up on the Rams, I mean, it was I think the Rams were either up 7-0, or if it was a 7-7 game, or it was close in the first quarter or two. And then the 49ers just took over that game. And I don't get it because I want to focus on this game first. But one of the reasons I make this point is we saw the 49ers, the Buccaneers, and the Cardinals, granted with Colt McCoy, but they're playing the Panthers with backups as well, all lose and admittedly not even in close games. They all lost by double digits. And these are supposed to be your representatives of the NFC with the exception of the Packers and I guess the Cowboys. But the Cowboys lost last week in a matchup by double digits to a team that the Eagles beat by double digits this week. I mean, it's just a whole kind of mess. In the NFC, I understand it's Russell Wilson's first game back from injury. They put up 0 points. The Seahawks put up 0 points against the Packers, who don't have their best defensive players playing. I understand it's your first game back, but without them having one of the best corners in the league and both their best pass rushers, and you put up 0 points against them, it just leaves a lot to be desired with the NFC in the sense of when is somebody going to establish themselves as a giant? And every week we think somebody's going to do it, and then something happens. But we can touch on all that. I guess I brought up the Rams and 49ers, and that's probably worth talking about. Zach, we said this off the line. I want to give a huge shout out to my boy Deebo Samuel because actually I want to give a shout out to two receivers in that game, Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel. They're both on historic paces. I don't know if you guys saw that. I mean, Deebo's currently on pace to essentially break every single one of Jerry Rice's single season records for the 49ers, which is absurd because Jerry Rice almost objectively is considered the greatest receiver of all time by most people. So to see my Gamecock doing that and the way he was using a multifaceted approach with the rushing this week and the receiving, the way he beat a really great team, amazing. And even on a bad week, Cooper Kupp still got his and had over 100 yards receiving with 10 receptions. We're seeing two guys doing something special. And if you came into this year and told me Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp were going to set the standard for wide receivers this year ahead of guys like Devonta and people like that, I would have been like shocked. I would have been rooting for it, but I would have been shocked. And it's amazing to see that happening. So I'll throw that out there and let you guys touch on, because I just opened up a whole can of worms. So I'll let you guys talk about anything or whatever you want to talk about. But I really wanted to bring up the state of the NFC because it's not pretty.
Yeah, the disrespect from Aaron Donald in the pregame, claiming that he did not know who Deebo Samuels was. I'm not sure if you guys caught that press conference. Yeah, he said he just like doubled down. A lot of the announcers were like, or the reporters were like, well, what do you mean you don't know Deebo Samuels is? And he just confidently doubled down. He was like, yeah, I have no idea who he is. Like he obviously knows who I would at least hope that he knows who Deebo Samuels is, but, just obviously not letting, anything come into fruition before the game. I thought it was a little weird. But the Rams paid the price for it. And you got to give it up to the 49ers. I mean, just when you think they're down and out, they come storming back. That was their final home game in their conference, and they were previously 0-3, so they definitely needed a win. I guess they were 0-2. They needed to win against the best team in that division, you could argue. Wanted to give a shout out to Jimmy Ward, the corner for the San Francisco 49ers. He's kind of like a Jalen Ramsey. He plays very, very similar to him. But I think at this point, you could argue he's like a top 5, top 10 corner at this point. Him and guys like J.C. Jackson have just, they're outplaying all of their opponents and, obviously shut down a wide variety of the receivers, whether it was Cooper Kupp, who got a lot of his points in garbage time, I will admit. So whether he was covering him, Odell, Van Jefferson, I mean, these are all pretty solid receivers. Shut them all down and allowed Fred Warner and Bosa and company go to work. So, the 49ers are not out of it. Now, do we trust them to play consistently? And I still think Jimmy G is a problem, but I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, I was definitely shocked by the outcome. The thing I wanted to bring up here, in addition to you guys, is I read this quote earlier today. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I guess it's from Jim Trotter, an NFL.com columnist. He says the growing perception, I guess, around the league is that the more physical and money an opponent makes the game, the Rams don't like it. And I think his quote that teams think they can physically dominate the Rams. That would be a big concern if that, is actually the case. It's kind of a surprise when you have a guy like Aaron Donald on one side of the line. I know their offensive line is typically very strong as well. But again, this is 2 straight games where that's been the case. And again, the Titans are one of the best teams in the league, but coming off the Derrick Henry injury, 2 straight duds. It's concerning for the Rams. I mean, the talent's there. Obviously Odell will get integrated into the offense after the Robert Woods injury. Von Miller as well on the defensive side. But I mean, if that's true, it's concerning. This is a genuine concern. I know Cy is going to be like, Rams. He's never going to change his mind the whole season, which is fair, but they've looked horrendous for 2 consecutive weeks. And I usually give teams a pass if they look bad one week, i.e. the Jets beating teams, the Jaguars beating teams. And as good as the Titans are, 2 straight just horrible weeks, including Stafford, who really these games were almost decided by Stafford throwing interceptions early in the game and just having not being able to come back. It's a concern.
I'm not laughing because I'm just like Rams this, Rams that. That's not even my point. Like, I understand the concerns from the Rams. I'm laughing because we're talking, like, just listen to what you just said. You just said, yeah, Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. are going to be integrated onto this team. I was talking to my uncle and my cousin, Shrieker, who you guys know, like 2 days ago. And I was just like, you read a headline today saying Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. are getting their starts for the Los Angeles Rams today, are both starting their first game for the Los Angeles Rams today. Did you ever think in your lifetime that you would see arguably two of the most talented players at their respective positions who have had like otherworldly seasons in the past, both get their start for a team in the middle of a season. Like, just think about that. Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. are starting for the LA Rams, who are already, like, I mean, obviously they lost this week, but they were already one of the best teams in the NFL to start off with. It's a mind-boggling like concept to me, because I know, Ev, you're not as big on as Odell, and I'm not even saying he's like one of the best to play or anything like that, but talent-wise, I don't think there's a big argument to say that he's not one of the most talented receivers that we've seen. Like, I mean, he does things that I've never seen anybody do for a receiver. And then Von Miller is like one of the best pass rushers I've ever seen in his peak performance. I'm not saying either of them are in their peaks, but do I think they're going to contribute to this Rams team? Oh, 1,000,000% I do, especially because Von's going to be playing next to Aaron Donald, which will help him out. And Odell Beckham's going to be playing next to Cooper Kupp, who's having a historic season to help him out. There's things to be concerned about the Rams, but I completely disagree with the physicality part, because yeah, maybe they struggled for these 2 weeks, but they've also played many physical teams this season and they've dismantled them. So you can make that proclamation over a 2-week sample, but over the course of the season, I disagree with that. And I think Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and players of that nature would very much disagree with the physicality aspect of things, because my main argument would be those kinds of guys have built their careers upon being physical with players and getting in people's faces, even if they're, somebody like an Aaron Donald was considered undersized. Like, I completely disagree with that. I mean, they have things to figure out, but I don't think it's because of just the physical nature. I think it's genuinely that they need to take this bye week to be like, okay, we need to reassess, and I trust that they will. Again, you're right, Ev. I'm backing up the Rams, but I think I have good reason to do so, because this is not about the 2-game sample, but the course of the season for me in particular. And also, we're talking a lot about the Rams, and they deserve scrutiny for what's happened in the last 2 weeks, but the 49ers deserve a lot of credit for what they did this weekend, because they could legitimately be a team that can get into the playoffs this year and make some noise. I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo much, but that hasn't stopped them from making noise in the past and making it to a Super Bowl, has it? No, it hasn't. And they have the capabilities with this offense, with Kittle back playing well, with Deebo Samuel, with Elijah Mitchell running the ball well, and with this defense and Nick Bosa turning up the way that they are, and Ward getting these interceptions the way that he is. Is it crazy to think the 49ers could represent the NFC if they keep this momentum going forward? I don't think it is, because they've done it before and they can do it again. So especially a week after Kyle Shanahan started getting all that, that press about being maybe overrated, or that article or whatever came out. So,
speaking of Super Bowl appearances, Ev, I got a question for you. What if I told you that describe this team to me? Veteran quarterback, lots of veteran free agents that were superstars on previous teams that all kind of link up together and ball out for a couple of years. Good receiving core, good secondary. What type of team does that kind of remind you of?
He's Bucks and Rams.
Bucks and Rams. So what happened to the Bucks last year? They had a lull mid-season. The infamous 4th down picture or meme from Tom Brady, which was right around this period of time. They end up turning around. They have the inevitable, rough wins right midway through the season. They turn around, they win a Super Bowl, and they dominate in that Super Bowl. I think you're going to see something very similar with the Los Angeles Rams. I think what's happening to them right now is actually a really good thing, because it's kind of knocking them off their high horse. They're resetting, they're recalibrating, and then they're just going to hit the ground running moving forward. So I'm not in the slightest concerned about the Rams, but I think it's definitely they do play in the most difficult division, undisputably. So that's also something maybe concerned about a little bit.
Cool. That's an awesome point. I hadn't thought about that, but that also makes me think of something else. What is both of your perspectives on the Buccaneers? Because I came here last week and me and Ev had the one-on-one podcast, and I said to Ev, I was like, Ev, you might think I'm biased because obviously you guys know I'm not the biggest Brady fan, and last year they proved me wrong completely about winning the Super Bowl. But I said to him last week, I don't think the Buccaneers have done anything this year that has truly impressed me. They don't have any wins to write home about, with the exception of the Cowboys ones. Like, even if they have a good record, they've barely beaten teams that you would expect them to win by. They have some wins where they've won by a lot, but it's not against great teams. I said last week, I don't think there's anything about the Buccaneers that's like blown me out of the water. Plus, they've lost games to like the Saints, who they should be beating. And this week, they just lost to the football team. So I said this before they played the football team, saying, like, I don't actually think the Buccaneers are maybe as good as some of these other teams. And I think they have some things to be concerned about. I understand they had some injuries this week, so I'm not gonna take that away from them. But at the same time, I outside of the Cowboys week 1, which was a game the Cowboys probably should have won if Zerloin didn't miss like every extra point and field goal that he had an opportunity to kick. Like, nothing the Buccaneers have done this season has been like super impressive to me personally. I said this to E last week, and then they came out this week and had an absolute dud against a football team. So I want to see what you guys think of the Buccaneers, and if you think that they're going to be there at the end of, when it's all said and done in the playoffs and with making a Super Bowl run. What is your thought about them in the NFC?
See, I think that's the story about the Rams too. I literally think their stories are the exact same right now. Like, who have the Rams beaten that's really impressive other than the Bucs game? I just looked at their schedule. Like, they don't have impressive wins either, and they have bad losses.
No, but at least you can say they've beaten, a legit like competitor. I mean,
so they beat the Bucs at home, and the Bucs beat the Cowboys at home. Those are, in my book, granted the Cowboys. Well, both of those games were a really long time ago. Yeah, I think those are even wins. And it's the same idea. I really think these two teams, I would probably have the Rams a tick above them just because I like their overall balance of the team. But their story, like to Zach's point, like their stories look identical. And if you look at the schedules, it's like very similar. They've beaten, probably one really impressive win each, a couple of really dud performances.
I give the Rams credit for beating the Seahawks when they had Russell Wilson. I mean, the Seahawks were good back then, and they got a dub on them. I don't think the Buccaneers even have another win against a good team, and they've lost. I mean, they both lost to teams that they probably shouldn't have lost to. But I would argue the Bucs losses. I mean, even their wins haven't been quite as impressive to me. I mean, they had a 2-point win against the Patriots. Like before,
the Patriots are a really good team.
Well, they're becoming that, but the Bucs were their first example, right? They scored 19 points against them, and
that's also Belichick on Tom. That's a little bit of an unfair scenario.
But still, like, right? Like the Seahawks are, I think, with Russell Wilson when that team was gelling was an impressive win. I can't think of another win the Bucs have had that has been even their only win that's impressive was week 1 of the season. Literally week 1 of the season, and it probably shouldn't have won that game. Like the Cowboys, the reason they won that game is the Cowboys lost that game. If we're being real here, I mean, they missed every opportunity to win that game with kicking, and that's on Zerloin. Like I'm not gonna put that on the Bucs just completely outplaying the Cowboys, right? Like I think the Rams have been more impressive in their victories personally, but again, I haven't seen the Bucs do anything outside of that that's been like notable.
I'll also say that I don't think they've had as many opportunities to do so. But Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, you look at the NFC South, like that's like 3 additional wins with Simeon at the helm at QB for New Orleans. Atlanta's atrocious, and the Panthers can't be trusted. So it's like to no fault. The
Saints are still playing well. The Falcons aren't horrible.
The Falcons are trash.
Yeah, this week was tough for you. But no,
it was painful watching that game. In fact, we have a safety that's like 5'8", like 170 pounds, and he was covering CeeDee Lamb for like the entire first half. I don't know who instructed or like who like wrote up or developed that defensive scheme, but if you guys didn't check, CeeDee Lamb had 2 touchdowns in the first half. I wonder why. Just didn't make any sense at all. One game I did want to bring up, though. So I wanted to congratulate the Pittsburgh Steelers for getting a big win last week. Oh, wait. Looks like they had a draw against arguably the worst team in the entire league against the Detroit Lions. At home in Heinz Field. The Lions scored 16 points, which represents the amount of losses they'll have this season, 16-1. Boys, thoughts? What, like anything that you guys wanted to laugh or just make fun of with the Steelers? Dwayne Haskins did not get the starting job because of lazy pregame antics. I'm not sure if you guys saw that story. They ended up going with Mason Rudolph, and Dwayne Haskins sat some bench because of lazy pregame festivities. I'm not sure if you guys saw Tom Wood's press release there.
I actually didn't. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I didn't see that. That's interesting, but also the least surprising thing I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, I mean, we know what the Steelers are. Not a huge surprise. They refuse to put away good teams. And obviously without Ben, well, but not that Ben is anything special anymore, but Dan Campbell, they bite off kneecaps, they fight, but it's a shame they should have won. I mean, if their kicker just makes that field goal, but yeah, kind of a weird game too, a cold game, but go ahead.
We say that, but the Lions should have beaten the Ravens if Justin Tucker didn't hit a historic field goal from deep down the field. So it's not like the craziest notion to me that a Mason Rudolph led Steelers team. You can say what you want about Jared Goff, but I'd take Jared Goff over Mason Rudolph. And we have Jared Goff and DeAndre Swift versus Jared Goff and Najee Harris. I think that's a pretty fair that the Lions won that game. Like, if you can't beat Mason Rudolph, then I mean, what are we even talking about here? So I don't actually think it's crazy that it was a tie game. Like, it's not like I expected the Steelers to go out there and beat the Lions with Mason Rudolph. I honestly didn't. Like, if you told me Mason Rudolph was playing, I might have taken Lions money line. Like, I didn't expect that.
I'm curious what the line closed at 5.5. Okay, because it was in Heinz Field, but yeah.
And also, Zach, I want to say something. You were saying the NFC South should be easy wins, but keep in mind the Bucks have lost to the Saints this year, and the same Saints team that lost to your Falcons a week later. So
but that wasn't a Simeon's Saints team.
It was half and half. Simeon closed the game because that was the game.
Gotcha.
That was the game.
Simeon's the one that actually beat him, in my opinion. Like, he came in the second half and
played really well.
Yeah,
Simeon's a quality backup, but everyone. The other thing about we should move on. But the other thing about the Bucks is they're the Super Bowl champs. Everyone, and they have Tom Brady. Everyone gives them their best shot. That's just kind of how it is. And the Saints always have their number. But the other team we should talk about is Baltimore. Quickly, before we move on to picks, this is, it's almost been a week at this point because it's a Thursday night game. But, like, what's the story on Baltimore? Are they not a good team after all? I mean, again, there's so many weird scores this week, but they got they got dominated, physically dominated in that game. So what do we think?
Yeah, just touching on it quickly. That was a bad game, but I think they're going to bounce back. They just need to be more creative with using their receivers, because when a team doesn't respect your receiver play, they can kind of creep in. You saw Miami stack the box, 9 guys, one free safety out there, and Lamar, they shut down the running game. And then, once you shut down the Lamar running game, they become a very predictable offense. So as stylistically, as aesthetically pleasing as they are with, like, their read options and their design runs, they need to just be a little bit more creative. And I think that was a good implementation of that. So I think they'll bounce back. It's Harbaugh, and he's a great coach. Actually, one thing before switching over the picks, I wanted to give Ev a shout out because he picked the Minnesota Vikings over the Chargers. And with knowing how much of an aficionado Evan is of the Los Angeles Chargers, I feel like he's kind of, like, figured that team out. Like, the games that Evan bets on the Chargers for, they have a tendency of being successful in covering. And it's kind of similar to, like, my early success with, like, predicting the Panthers, like, for a couple of weeks. And so we should have known better, Cy, when Evan picked against the Chargers, like, that something was up and, like, our radar should have been up. So I just wanted to give Ev a quick shout out for picking against his guys.
I appreciate that. And it's a nice segue. And on top of that segue, do you guys realize that? So how awful obviously we did a 4-game parlay. All of them missed. We didn't do that badly because of, just the timing of it and how it worked out. But Zach and I were so mad at you, Cy, for, like, some of the bets that we both loved. Like, you had picked the underdog to win or whatever.
Titans was a good example.
And one of them hit, which was the Eagles, and the other one didn't hit, but the Titans wouldn't have covered anyway. So right. Zach, our 3 favorite bets, 2 of which weren't included in the parlay, also missed. So that's our top 6 picks. Like, we legitimately were like if we picked all 6, we would have got over 6.
On the flip side of that, the ones that I thought for sure were going to hit that I was trying to convince you guys of, I was wrong on 2.
That's what I'm saying. It was probably more than 6. It's probably like 10.
Like, everyone's got to give everyone else credit for being wrong and right this week in multiple ways. That's why I say, in our defense, though, these last couple of weeks have been
crazy,
absurd, guys. I mean, we're talking about the Rams getting blown out, the Broncos getting blown out, the Cowboys. The Cowboys one isn't weird. The Buccaneers losing by double digits, the Cardinals getting blown out. I mean, this is not normal, right? Like, the Steelers tying with the Lions, these are just not, like, this isn't normal. Like, it's not, I'm not saying I'm trying to make excuses for us.
You're right. It's been nuts.
But the last couple of weeks, some of the results that we've seen I don't think the greatest predictors could have predicted what's kind of going on. So this is an anomaly in our opinion, but Zach, this is why we got to give Ev, like, a couple $100 of acknowledgement for the hedge bet strategy, because if that wasn't the case, we would have $0 in that bank account after these last.
Oh my gosh!
Well, and do you realize we would have made so much money if we stuck with it? Now, I 100% think it was the right decision because we all actually loved that Rams bet. But I never even thought of that whole thing that you can cash them out early. So it's like if you have that last game, like it's a great way to do it. Like you cash out early, you take anyway. It still worked out. We've still doubled our money on the year, thanks to some gymnastics with our balance, if you will. So, but let's see how we can do this week. Unfortunately I don't have the however and performed last week. I just got in kind of late, so. But I'm sure it was ugly, so we can jump right into the spreads.
All good. We'll get the update. Zebo, hit us with the spreads, baby.
Sounds good, boys. All right, starting off on Thursday, we've got the New England Patriots playing at the Atlanta Falcons in Mercedes-Benz. It's going to be quite the game. Really excited for it. New England holds a 7-point spread. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and kick this one off first. The reason I'm excited about this is because I think the Falcons cover, and I would argue Falcons money line. I think the Falcons come back. They have a great opportunity. They know they're still in the running to make the playoffs. They just came off a Saints win 2 weeks beforehand. They were never in contention of beating Dallas right from the start. So I think it kind of took the air out of the sails. Right now, guys, this is showing that the Patriots are a 10-point team better than Atlanta. I don't think that's true. So I've got Atlanta covering -7.
Pat's winning cover. The Falcons obviously don't have Ridley anymore. Their best player on offense remaining is also going to be out, Cordero Patterson. It is a big number, 10.5, to say they're better by them than 10.5. But Thursday games are also super weird. But I'm going to say Pat's winning cover.
Did you say it was 7 or 10.5?
It's 7. Zach saying that since it's on the road.
Okay, that's gotcha. I'm going to take the Pats winning. I'm not going to take it covering anyway because I just don't like to bet the cover very often on Thursday night games. It's a crapshoot, but I don't see there's no way I'm picking the Falcons money line though. Like you could pay me $100 to do that and I wouldn't do it. There's not even a chance. Cordero Patterson and Ridley out. Get out of here, Zach. I know you're a Falcons fan, but come on, bro. You got your mind right there.
Dude, honestly, I might just wait for the line to get more towards 10, and then I might just throw $5 on the money line. Who knows?
Damn, bro.
Anyways, all right. So next game, it's Sai's Colts playing at the Bills. Bills carry a 7-point spread. We'll let Sai go last. Ev, go ahead and kick this one off.
Bills winning cover.
Bills winning cover for me too.
Colts money line.
Okay, have fun.
Colts money line.
Oh, you could say, okay, have fun. We played every good team well this season, and this is one that we need to win, or we feel like we need to win, and I think we'll play well. We've been playing really well recently.
Okay. Next game here, Baltimore Ravens playing at the Chicago Bears. Baltimore carries a -6 spread despite the antics from last week. Sai, what do you think about this one?
I got Baltimore winning. You know what? Honestly, I'll take Baltimore to win and cover. I feel like after their dud last week, they'll put on a show this week.
That's on the road?
It's on the road in Chicago.
Chicago sucks, but that's a big number to go on the road and cover. So I'm going to say no cover, but Baltimore wins.
Yeah, I kind of lean Evans' direction here. David Montgomery's coming back. Fields is gaining more confidence by the day. I'm going to say Baltimore wins that, but I think Chicago covers 6. Moving on to the next game here. Detroit Lions, 0-8-1, playing at the Cleveland Browns. Browns are looking for a win, and the line certainly shows that. Cleveland -10. You can go ahead and kick this one off here. Dude, Lions money line or Lions cover 10? I'm actually really confident about this.
You have to make a pick,
I'll kick it over to you.
Zebo, you got to pick one.
You have to choose one of those options.
I'm going to take the Lions.
Okay.
Lions money line.
This is the week we catch up with Zach on picks. I'm calling it right now. I'm
Just
definitely
wait, man.
Wait, so what was your official Falcons pick? Is it officially Falcons? It was officially Falcons money line. Yeah, this is going to be good.
Falcons.
This will be good, Si. Very good. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Zebo, for finally.
I appreciate the kind gesture.
We're saying in advance, thank you, brother. We're waiting for one of these weeks. I'm definitely taking the Browns to win, but I don't feel confident about a cover. I'm never betting on the Lions money line in any game ever. I don't care how bad the Browns played last week. This is again, betting the Falcons with Cordero and Ridley out. I'm not doing it, but I'll take the Browns to win. No money line. No cover, though.
Don't catch a falling knife. And I hate betting the Lions to not cover because they always seem to keep it close. So, but Browns win.
Okay, so I actually feel way more confident about the Lions covering that spread, not money lines. So if that's the case, if that's going to like hinder our betting probability, then I'm clearly going with the Browns to win.
It won't make a difference.
No, it won't make a difference.
Boo!
No, you're changing your pick. No, don't change your
He
pick.
just
Wait, so
backed
you
out
guys
of that?
wouldn't
What?
go in on that? Okay, we'll talk about this later. We'll talk about
Zach,
this later.
you
Let's
can't
not
make
talk
your
about it.
picks with strategy in mind based on the betting.
No.
We actually, honestly, I was thinking this the other day. We should actually like more formally be like make both picks. You know what I mean? Like, I know we casually are like, maybe they'll cover, maybe they won't. But like, if we should actually be like, all right, I have to actually choose one.
No,
and then we can track that stat as well.
I'm confident the Browns will win the game, but I'm not. I'll take the Browns to cover over the Lions.
That's the thing. It's hard because there's so many 50-50 ones. So maybe we start that next week.
I think it's fine.
Carry on.
That's where the arbitrage lies.
That's the thing. If we start tracking that, then we might have some success. We're off the rails.
These lines are outrageous. This next game is the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. Titans carry a 10.5 spread. Ev, kicking it over to you.
I'll say at home they cover, but the Tyrod Taylor Texans are not. I mean, they're bad, but
I'll take Titans to win, but not to cover. I can't feel confident about Derrick Henry and Julio out and them guaranteed winning by double digits. I can't say that for a fact, even if
I'm with Cy. I think that's a great point. I got Titans winning, but not covering. Green Bay Packers playing at the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings play teams close. And that was their first. So last week was their first close win within like 3 or 4 points. So congrats on the Minnesota Vikings. They're now 4-5, hosting Green Bay. Green Bay still holds a 2.5 point spread. Cy, what do you got?
Dude, I feel like I've decided that I'm never going to make a bet on a Vikings game ever because you can never trust the Vikings to do one thing or the other. They'll beat teams that you don't expect them to beat, and they'll lose teams you don't expect them to lose to. With that being said, this 1 week, I will take the Packers to cover that spread and win the game. I expect them to win the game, and I expect them to win by a field goal. But this is the only week I'm picking that because Aaron Rodgers seems to own the Vikings more often than not. More often than not. I'm not saying
didn't they pull a big upset on the road at the Packers maybe last year or the year before?
Yeah, but I say more often than not. Like that's a rarity, right?
That one is sticking out of my head. I don't really remember the others, but
I'm gonna take the Packers to win and cover this week. But normally I never want to bet against the Vikings because they just do weird things, man. They have not come close to like every single game they played this year has been close. Good or bad teams, close. It's the Vikings every week, dude. I don't get it. Like, but I'm taking the Packers this 1 week.
I've got the Packers winning and covering too, but this is certainly no Aaron Rodgers yelling into the crowd, "I own you," followed with a discount double check.
I have a Vikings money line. I am obsessed with taking the Vikings to upset teams for some reason. I don't know why. I think they're actually a really good team. And the one elite NFC team that didn't have a dud last week, I think that evens out this week and the Vikings get them. The Rodgers, I mean, again, that was just because of the whole COVID situation. He did look rusty. The Packers didn't look too good either. Although the defense has been playing really well. So I'm going to say, because the Vikings kind of need one too with how the season started. So Vikings money line.
If there's ever a team to pick on an upset, it's the Vikings. I don't fault you for that at all.
But to your point, it's like when you pick them to upset someone every single week, like every blind squirrel finds a nut, right? So we'll see if I can get 2 in a row.
The problem with the Matrix is when we think we're going to agree on a pick, and then we don't.
Well, you guys didn't like the cover either,
an open subject for abuse,
I did like
verbal
the cover,
abuse.
I did like the cover, but that's okay. I mean, I understand why I picked that. He might have.
You said field goal game. Field goal game isn't liking the cover, isn't it? 3.5.
It's 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go Miami at New York Jets. Miami carries a -3 spread. Jets got smoked last week, but they are playing at home. I'll start this one off. I think Miami, I think they win and they cover. And I think it's just because Tua is playing with an injury. He's getting healthier by the day. 2 big wins over the last couple of weeks. So I've got Miami. Why not?
Miami wins and covers because of their defense, bro. That defense is playing out of their minds, and I expect them to go out there and have an amazing showing against those Jets.
One of my preferred bets. We don't know who's going to start for the Jets. I suspect it'll be Zach Wilson. And I also expect him to be incredibly rusty against a good defense. I think the Dolphins win and cover. I like that bet.
Cool. Next game here, we got the New Orleans Saints playing at the Philadelphia Eagles. Ev, we'll start this one off with you. Philly carries a minus 1.5 spread.
Brutal pick. Shout out Cy for picking the Eagles last week. Shout out Michael Dolan, another interesting Eagles article, which always fires me up about the Eagles. It's possible the Eagles aren't bad, is what I'll say. It's possible the Eagles aren't bad. Devontae Smith breakout is upon us. Saints still are playing well, have a good defense with Simeon. This is one of the hardest picks. Lincoln Financial is a hard place to win. Give me the Eagles to cover that.
Wait. To clarify, was it the Eagles that had a minus 1.5 at home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to take the Eagles to cover. It's hard for me to pick them back-to-back weeks, but back-to-back weeks, they've proven the last 2 weeks that they're a team that's, I think, got a chance to do something. And I don't trust Simeon every week to win games, and they're playing on the road. So I'm gonna take the Eagles to win and cover.
Yep, I've got Philly winning and covering that one.
And I'll point out Dolan's article because it was good. The change they've made is, I don't know if you guys read it, but they're actually running the ball now, which is the strength of their team, right? Their offensive line, similar to the football team, like their run blocking offensive line, control the clock, take some pressure off Hurts. Again, Devontae Smith looks amazing. So once they've made that shift, they actually look a lot better. So Dolan said he was going to make me a believer. I don't know if he's made me a believer, but enough to win that game, maybe.
The irony in that, though, is they started doing that after Miles Sanders got hurt. And Miles Sanders comes back most likely this week. So we'll see how they incorporate that. But they'll probably.
It is interesting. What does that say about Miles Sanders? I don't know. Maybe he's not an every down back. I don't know.
Or maybe they'll finally just start giving it to him and letting him run free behind that line. This might be his breakout. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so switching it over to the game that I'll be attending this weekend. We got the Washington football team at the Carolina Panthers. We'll let Ev go last here. This is tough because Carolina carries a 3.5 spread at home. Questions about Cam Newton and his involvement. I think it's a little bit of a slowdown. I love the defensive line for Washington and getting to Cam in those situations. I actually love Washington money line here. I know it's at home. It's in Charlotte. It's going to be crazy, but I just think Washington is riding this high, and I think they continue it forward. So I got Washington money line based on these odds.
The one thing I'll say is Ron Rivera is going to be very amped up to try to win this game against his former team. I'll give them that. But with Chase Young and with Montez Sweat out, there's no way I can feel confident taking Washington money line. I'm going to take the Panthers to win. I guess it doesn't matter if I pick them to cover or not, since Zach already picked the Washington money line. But I'll say they win, and honestly, I'll say they cover because I think with both those guys going out, it's going to be a tough one for them. And I also think they played beyond expectations this last week, and I think they'll fall a little bit back down to earth. And the Panthers, I think, are going to be motivated. I think Christian McCaffrey's going to have himself a field day against that squad this week. So,
I think Cy hit the nail on the head. I think I forgot to do it earlier. Shout out Jonathan Allen. Again, I'm not an interior defensive line expert, but there is no way that he's not like top 3, definitely 5. I mean, that dude just dominates week in and week out, and that he was the MVP of that Bucs game. So our interior defensive line will still be amazing with him and Payne and Ioannidis and Settle. But I mean, the edges, there's no one left. We're rolling out like 7th round draft picks out on the edges. As much as I want to pick Washington football team, I think with the Panthers, with Cam being there, just the renewed energy, regardless of how much he plays or how well he plays. And I think the defense is going to give us some problems on offense. So I have Panthers. I think the line's actually probably wrong. I think it should probably be higher to Carolina. In Charlotte. So I'm going to say Panthers win and cover, unfortunately.
You guys understand that Cam does not know this playbook. This is not a Ron Rivera playbook. He probably knows Washington's playbook better than he does Matt Rule's playbook at this point. So just like you guys.
Well, but if he's not ready to play, they can play like him and PJ. They can, again, they beat Arizona by like 50 with,
You understand they're going to dump the ball off 2 yards to Christian McCaffrey to the right.
How hard is it? Yeah.
There's going to be no one to catch him because both the outside guys.
Washington's rookie middle linebacker is good.
And the one thing Jamin Davis can do is run, though.
Exactly.
So, but he's a rookie that is not very experienced.
There's a lot of great linebackers in the NFL that can run that haven't been able to catch Christian McCaffrey. I don't expect this Washington football defense to be the one to do it.
I agree with Cy, but
and I also think Cam Newton's going to be trucking people left and right. So that's my point on that one.
All right, next game. That's a good point. All right, we got the San Francisco 49ers playing at the Jacksonville Jaguars. San Francisco holds a 6.5 spread. Cy, we'll kick this one over to you first.
San Francisco winning and covering. I'm going to say they win by a touchdown.
I wanted to pick Jacksonville money line here because sneaky Jacksonville has been playing really well. No thanks to their garbage offense, though. So I don't want to give any handouts here like Zach's been giving us this week. So I am going to take San Francisco to win, but I do not think I don't think they cover because I think Jacksonville could win.
I think San Francisco wins and they cover cleanly. I think they just dominate the game from the start. I think this is probably a spread I'm more confident in, but we'll move on to the next one here. Cincinnati Bengals playing at the Raiders. Cincinnati carries a -1 spread coming off that bye week. Raiders big loss at home. Ev, what do you got?
I think coming off the bye week again, like I said earlier, I think the Raiders are going to really start to slip fast. So I'm going to take Cincinnati to win and cover, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. So I'll leave it to you.
The spread again?
Spread is -1 Cincinnati's way.
Oh, so it's just a straight up. Yeah, I'll take the Bengals.
It's in Vegas. It is in Vegas, though, right?
I still feel. I think the Bengals need to make a statement. I think they will this week. That's actually probably my favorite bet.
I don't know who stops the 3 receivers there. I mean, the Raiders defense has been consistently lackluster. So we'll move on to probably the favorite game of the week here. Cowboys at the Chiefs. Both teams probably need a big win here. Chiefs carry a 2.5 spread. Oh, this is tough.
Wow.
Isn't this a brutal one? It's just
this is rough.
And you got to figure out how back the Chiefs are.
Look, I'll go first. You guys already know what I'm going to do. I'm taking the Chiefs.
I know you are.
I'm going to stick to what I stick with. That's you know me. I don't wean off mine. I think they're back. And that's no disrespect to the Cowboys. I just think this is going to be like an amazing game. I think it's going to be very high scoring, and I genuinely think the Chiefs need and want this win more. And for that reason, I think the Chiefs will win the game because I think both teams are great offenses with decent defenses at this point. Also, I know this is off topic. Shout out Trayvon Diggs, 8 interceptions in 9 games. That's ridiculous. But anyway, continue.
I'm going to say he gets another. This is a brutal game to pick. And this isn't to say that the Chiefs aren't back, but I think the Cowboys, believe it or not, are maybe a more well-rounded team. I think the Chiefs should win at home if they are back. I'm going to take the Cowboys on the road to get it done.
I'm going to take the Cowboys too. It's hard playing in Arrowhead. But we've seen episodes multiple times of the Chiefs dropping 40. This isn't new to us this season. And then they turn around and they have awful games. You know, it's like for every great game they play, they'll have like a bad game or two. Now I will say they're 6-4. Like they've kind of turned it around.
They're going to coast,
looking, and they're certainly on this exponential rise here. They're only 1 game behind the Cowboys. So, you know, I definitely see Cy's point of view, and this really is a field goal game. I mean,
I disagree. They need it though, because with the rest of the division, I think they're going to coast. They probably do want it to his point, but
I mean, I still think they need it because the division is still close enough that other teams can catch them.
I think
the Cowboys have the division, even with the Eagles.
The Cowboys certainly don't need it though. Yeah, they certainly don't.
I think the AFC is more of like a crapshoot. The wild card is anyone can any one of like 8 teams could win the wild card. So you really want to win the division in the AFC if you can. So I think the Chiefs do need it.
I think the Cowboys are a much better team though. I've got Cowboys, man. I'm going with E on this one.
Let's go.
Brutal pick.
We'll switch it over to the final 425 game here. Arizona Cardinals playing at the Seattle Seahawks. Kyler, you know, I'm not necessarily sure what's going on with him. I think he's expected to play. I think they need him to play at this point. Arizona carries a 2.5 spread, expecting that, but it is in Seattle. So what do you guys got?
Go ahead, E.
Ugh. I think Kyler probably could have played last week, but Kingsbury was like, "Oh, we can beat PJ Walker and the Panthers without Kyler." Whoops. Not that they really needed it, but Russell the offense looked so bad last week. Like, how can you pick them to win this game? I'm gonna take Arizona to win and cover. I'm tempted, but they really did not look good last week offensively.
Yeah, for me, it's Arizona win and cover as well, especially with Carson out.
Okay, I'm going to say this with a grain of salt because I want nothing to do with this game in the sense of betting, because I have no idea if Kyler's going to play, and we have no idea what's going to come out of Russell Wilson this week after last week. I will take the Cardinals to win and cover with the expectation that Kyler Murray plays this week. Obviously, if he's not playing, then I don't feel good about that at all. But even with me picking him win and cover, I want nothing to do with betting this game. This is a complete crapshoot situation. So I really nothing to do with it.
I agree. All right, so the Sunday night game is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the LA Chargers. I'm assuming Mason Rudolph starts again. Chargers carry a 5-point spread. I'll kick this one off. I think this is a great game to bet on the Chargers. And I think this is just off a fresh loss or a series of losses actually with LA now. But I think this is always, a great opportunity to kind of to capitalize on some of these spreads. So I definitely feel confident with the Chargers covering 5 against a Steelers team that, couldn't even beat the Rams or couldn't beat the Lions. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Si?
I'd take the Chargers to win and cover if we knew for a fact Mason Rudolph was starting. I don't know if that's the case. Is it guaranteed? I don't know what Ben's injury is, but there's a chance.
It's COVID, and they said if he – I had to Google that as well. They said if he clears protocols and is physically fit to play, then he will play. It sounds like an Aaron Rodgers situation. And do I trust Ben Roethlisberger at this age in his career to be physically fit to play?
I do, because Ben Roethlisberger is like a tank, dude. That dude will break his leg and then come back a week later and play. That's what he's been doing his whole career.
But it's like COVID's like the cardio element of it, right?
Bateman wasn't even physically fit to play before the season.
Yeah, and he's still out there, right? No, I at that
he's got the Zion Williamson body.
I think the Chargers money line, but I'm not taking them to cover. I don't, with the way the Chargers have been losing games recently, and if Ben plays, I think it's good enough for the Steelers to stay within 5. I don't feel confident about the Chargers winning big. If they do win considerably this week, then I'll give them some respect going forward. So that's
but then the spread won't be 5 anymore.
No, but still, I'm not going to take the Chargers confident in cover.
It's at SoFi, right?
Yeah.
I like where your head's at, Zach, with this. I like it a lot because
you got to take advantage of 2 lost teams that are really good.
Chargers cover because even if Ben plays, again, to Si's point, I'm not that confident in it, but I even then would feel okay about it, given that it's in SoFi. And that line doesn't say that they're that much better than. Now, granted, I don't really trust the Chargers right now, and then it's like if Ben doesn't play, it's a layup. So
I think we're sleeping on the Steelers defense. So they played pretty in recent
Steelers defense is good. Najee Harris is a beast.
And the Chargers offense has not been great.
The Chargers run D specifically isn't very good. So Najee should be able to run all.
Najee should ball. I don't know. I don't feel great about the cover personally.
Yeah, that's a good point. Najee will ball for sure in that game, but I do like the pass defense.
I like where your head's at, Zach. But again, even with all that said, it's don't blame Cy for not being.
All right, final game. New York Giants playing at the Buccaneers. Buccaneers have a 11-point spread. I personally want nothing to do with this game. I'll say the Buccaneers win, but I think the Giants cover this.
Agreed. Why is this always a Monday Night Football game?
I don't.
Giants Bucks is always Monday Night Football.
Just want Brady versus.
I get it, just Brady. Yeah.
Yeah, Brady versus Giants. That's.
Oh, okay.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go Buccaneers covering that.
All right. I don't think any of us like it, so it's an arbitrary selection. But I'll say they don't cover. But do I care? No.
Dude, I want to know if Saquon's back because I want to make the bold pick and go Giants money line. But if he's not guaranteed back. If he's not guaranteed back, I'm not picking the Giants. So I'll give the Buccaneers the win, but not the cover. But if Saquon's back, you heard it here first. I think the Giants come out and sneak this one out if Saquon's healthy.
Wouldn't that be 3 in a row for the Bucs?
That they'd lose?
Yeah. Oh, it looks like Saquon is trending towards a return.
Oh, yes, please. If he's nice, if he plays a full allocation of snaps, I'm feeling real good about the Giants right now. They've been playing pretty decently recently.
It's in Tampa, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an easy bet, but I'm going to take the Buccaneers money line. I'm not taking them to cover, though.
Nope.
Not after they lost by double digits to the football team. And,
And the Giants, honestly, might be better.
What if we just did like a 6-game
Giants aren't
parlay
bad.
money line on
No.
the teams that we knew were going to win?
No.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks.
There's lots of little interludes throughout that episode that are like,
If you bared with us throughout this entire podcast, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Si.
No, I was saying don't trust our betting. That's all I can say. I'm not trying to have you guys lose money on our behalf. But if you do bet with us, make sure you bet the hedge parlay because you may make money if you do that. That's
Si is great. Don't trust our picks. Trust our, invest in our fund and trust our bet balance gymnastics. Thanks to all the kind of bonus rewards and parlay system. We again have doubled our money and then some still. It's been a grind lately. What?
That's because of betting subsidies.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of liquidity right now, I'll be honest. But
hey, you take 3 business guys and put them on a podcast. They may not pick the best picks, but they will pick the best strategy. That's what we'll put out there. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. As always, we'll be back next week with more football and more picks and what else. And I'm feeling real good about Evan and I making some ground on our picks this week with some of Zach's picks here. So we'll report back. And with that being said, those Mondays Down South.